Welcome to the Good News Mama podcast, a place to get in touch with other mamas, share the load, and know the Lord. Here we aim to lift each other up in the good news of Jesus and the laughter that comes with motherhood. We are a community of mamas just trying to keep the main thing the main thing. I'm your host, Lynn Carter, and each time you tune in, I pray you are encouraged and that you leave challenged and breathe a sigh of relief that you are understood. We were not meant to do life alone, Mama. Thanks for joining in. Let's do this and let's share the good news. I am thrilled to share this episode of Good News, Mama. Stephanie keeps it real. She has such great advice. We laugh a lot, and she is a goldmine of knowledge and insight to the fostering process. We talked for an hour, y'all. Sorry, not sorry. I couldn't stop asking questions. This mama is so inspiring, and she shares about what it's like being a mama of four and how she learned to roll with the punches. She talks about knowing your children and having date nights with them once a month for one-on-one time, and she shares her heart for fostering and the journey that it's been for her husband and her kiddos this past year. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Give it a listen for some good news, Mama, with Stephanie Knowlton. Hey, Stephanie. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Hey.
I'm so excited to have you. How's everything going in world of all the children? Yeah.
Yes, they're all good. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I really am so excited to hear what you're going to share. Why don't you start off telling us about yourself and your family and all the good things?
Okay. So I am Stephanie, and I have 5 awesome kids, and I have an amazing husband. We have been married for 12 and a half years, and my kids are Tristan, and he is 11. I have a daughter next who's 9. Another daughter, Angelina's 9. Selah is 7. Judah is 5, and he is my wild one. And he has his own hashtag called Judah Adventures.
And I love them. Oh my gosh, they're so awesome. Every time Ben and I see them, we're like, yep, that sounds about right. We have been there.
Yep, he's my wild one, but he is the cutest little.
Oh, he is.
We call him a Sour Patch Kid because he's super sweet, but then he's sour. So,
right.
So he's 5, and then I actually have a foster baby who is 8 months old.
Yes, that is exciting to hear, and I want to get to that as well. But I did want to tell you, one of my first memories of you, which we didn't know each other that well to begin with, but I knew you because your husband roomed with my husband before they were our husbands. And so I never knew if you knew this story, and I'm sure Ben would appreciate me telling this. When Ben and I were talking, but not really talking, and he was kind of punking me out, I sent him an email after I had ignored him for a month or so. And Brandon really helped Ben through that because I wouldn't respond to any text or anything. And I just put email ... after he kept trying to call me and stuff. And Brandon was like, bro, I think she wants you to check your email.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't even have Wi-Fi or anything. So I think Ben ran across the street. This is before smartphones. This is
yes, it was.
This is dating our age a little bit, but he ran across the street where his parents lived and he used their internet to check his email. And that's when we kind of made things official and got everything out in the clear. But it was so funny to me that it took Brandon to be like, bro, go check your email. It's and then another great memory I have was your proposal and how he proposed to you on the beach. And so you'll have to get into that at some point. But I just thought that was awesome how he was so suave and just completely made the bar so high. Yeah.
Dude, our proposal was the best. It was the best story.
Okay, just tell it real quick because it really was. Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell it. So it was New Year's Eve, and we went to this fancy restaurant at the beach in Virginia Beach because, you only go to fancy restaurants on special occasions, and it was our favorite fancy restaurant, and we loved it. So we get to the very first street at the beach, and there's Rudy's Inlet. And so there's all these rocks and it is freezing and I don't like the cold. So I was like, he was like, let's go look at the water. And I'm like, okay. So we go to the boardwalk and walk for like a second. And I'm like, okay, it's cold. Let's go back. And he was like, no, we have to go see the water. And I'm like, it's freezing. And he's like, just real quick for me. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we walk down to the water and all of a sudden I see this white thing floating up in the waves. And I'm like, what is happening? And so Bray and I watch CSI all the time at this point. So I'm freaking out.
I didn't know this part of the story.
I'm like, what is that? What is that going to be like, you know, an
A
arm
body.
or head or a
Right.
body or something in there. So I'm kind of freaking out, but then I'm like kind of excited because I realized, oh, it's a cooler. And then Brandon loves fishing and he actually needed a cooler. So I was like, oh, look, God gave you a cooler. But before that, I was like, okay, what if someone's like dead is in there or something? And he was like,
Mhm.
fine, like let's go get the cooler, it's awesome. And so we were excited and then I was terrified on the inside. um, and so we open it up and I'm like, what in the world? And I see like a blanket and then a box and I'm like so confused. And then I turn around and Brayden's like on his knee proposing. And
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it was a blanket with like sparkling cider and he
Oh.
had like champagne glasses and it was super sweet. And I was trying to figure out how the heck did he get a cooler and my ring to float up in the
Uh-huh.
ocean at the
Yes.
perfect time. But he had the best friends who like went in the ocean in full blown
Yeah.
bodysuits.
It was Jack, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Was
Jack
it?
Johnson.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That
so
was,
they pushed it up. I think him and his best friend. And yeah, so
yeah.
it was awesome.
Yeah,
I was just
girl.
like, I had no idea at
Yeah.
all. First of all, that was impressive. And then like just how
Oh.
creative.
I know. That just blew my mind. I thought that was so awesome. And then your wedding was amazing and beautiful. I remember that was
Thank you.
awesome. So anyway, that's some of my best memories thinking about how Brandon really
Aw,
helped us out. He doesn't even know the role
I
that he
love it. I
played.
didn't know that. So I'm really
Ben would
happy to hear
still be
that. I remember
sleeping.
when Ben was dating you and you guys were like, going back and forth. And I'm
Mm,
okay,
make up your
like she's
mind.
really cute. Come on. But
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Some people, it takes a little longer than others, but
Mhm.
he came around.
It's
So
all part of the journey.
it is. It is. And there's grace. So that's so good. So, you were talking about you have four kids that are biological. You have one foster baby.
Yes.
So part of me needs advice on this mama four thing because secretly, well, not so secretly, I want a little girl or another baby. And Ben is like, oh no, no, you've lost your mind. How could we even? So, but you make it look so easy and you take it all in stride and you just kind of roll with the punches. So any little free advice that you want to throw out there to me, I'll take any of it. Any mama listening would appreciate that. But then on top of the four kids, then you decide to foster a baby. Like,
Hmm.
what, tell me that journey. Tell me like what, because I want to know what Brandon thought. I want to know what you were thinking, kind of how God worked both of your hearts and just everything. Tell me all about it.
Okay. So first the advice, I'm sure I'll say random things, but I think my biggest thing is just being flexible and rolling with life. And like I kind of learned to like lower my expectations because kids are wild and crazy and then they're teething and have a fever so you can't go anywhere for 2 days because you have to make sure it's just teething and it's not a sickness. So I just like have been super flexible, I think is one of the biggest things I've learned. And then after I had my fourth kid, because like going from first to second to third wasn't like a big deal to me.
Mhm.
And my kids are all less than 2 years apart. So 21 months, 23 months, and then just over 2 years for my youngest. So they're all really close. So I had a lot of toddlers at one time.
Yeah.
And so life is really overwhelming when you have lots of toddlers. And I tell my friends who are in the trenches of motherhood, when you have a lot of kids under like 5, I think that was the hardest season of my entire life. And
Yeah.
I've been through a lot of crap. Um, and like every season is hard in its own way, but I think having all of these kids on you constantly crying, pulling at you, it's really hard. So I think reaching out to other people has been like my life-saving thing, like going to other moms, like moms groups. I did story time at the library. That was like one of our favorite things. Just being around community and other moms, even if you're introverted, even if it's really hard, do it. Like, and like the other thing I learned was don't be afraid to ask for help. After my fourth, it was really hard transitioning to four kids. So just like I didn't do well with that. I didn't ask for help when I really needed it. So now I just tell everyone, I'm like, ask for help. Like your friends and your family are there for you to help you. But they don't know that you need help unless you ask for it. So I think just like being brave and asking for it, because I don't like to for people to help me. I'm not good at that.
Mm-mm. Girl, I feel you. I want to get it all done and I want to feel accomplished and I don't want to have to inconvenience anybody. I think that's the big thing
Mhm.
is like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not that important to ask somebody, so I kind of write it off. But you're exactly right. I could not agree more. I think that the worst situation is when we stay at home, never get out, never realize that we're not the only one in this situation, and then
Yeah.
we end up spiraling down and it's hard to get out of that. So, definitely.
Awesome.
Um, yes. And so then, so be flexible. I got that. And then lower my expectations, which I would totally agree with that because I feel the same exact way that even in like around special occasions and things, like my mind has this picture of how amazing
Yeah.
it should be. And then I kill it if I hold other people to that expectation. Like I almost ruined Christmas this last year and I felt like I've grown a lot in that. But we wanted to videotape the kids' reactions and Wade like just spit out the room and we're like, no. And we didn't mean it like in a like you can't do this or you're being bad. And he came back crying, Stephanie,
Oh,
like we hurt his feelings and we just wanted to catch his surprise on camera, and we
yeah.
just enjoyed that moment. So exactly what you're saying, like don't like hold myself to some, Pinterest or Instagram worthy moment that's captioned and, amazing, but just soak it up and realize that every kid pees in the bed a million times and every kid like and you will be
Or
up every single
or
night.
my kitty's in the Lego bin.
Yeah, or in the Lego bin. Yeah. If you gotta go, you gotta go, right, Judah? Oh, girl, you're amazing. Okay, so then keep going with the fostering thing because I know that's going to play into this because now you don't just have four, you have five, and
Yeah.
super amazing.
So my youngest went into school this year full time. So because he's in kindergarten. So I have some more time freedom. I'm a full-time stay-at-home mama and I have my own business that I run, from home. So I have some freedom with that. But how it all started was one of my really good friends does foster care and she's been doing it for just about 3 years now. But this was literally a year ago in January. And so, we've just been on the adventure with her, watching her navigate it. And it's just been beautiful and hard and just, it's just been interesting, not something I ever honestly thought I could do. If you would have asked me this, 2 years ago, I would have said, heck no, I'm never doing that. There's no way someone could give me a baby, have me raise them for a year or two, and then take them back. Like, no way. I can't do that. But anyways, so I just have been watching her do that. And we were talking because we had a mom's group last year and she was sharing how her social worker called her and begged her to take this baby. And she said, and she has four kids that we have almost the same exact ages. We have like a boy, two girls, and a boy. And then she had her foster baby already. And then this is the second foster baby. And they were begging her to take him because they had no homes for him.
Oh,
So the need is great. And I was just like, wow. So God just stirred my heart. And like, it was like one of those moments where you're like, your chest is on fire and it's going to explode and you just know it's God. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I've never thought about actually doing this. But when there's a need and I can meet it, I want to do something about it.
yes.
So I didn't really do that much about it, but like just kind of kept praying about it. And then a few weeks like later, I talked to Brandon and I was like, hey, I just want you to pray about this. Like, there's a huge need in our community. And like, I just feel like God's asking us to do this, and really like me mostly, because I have to do all the work. Like, I have to do all the visitation, I have to do it all.
Right.
And then so Brandon was like, I don't think I can give a baby back.
Yeah. How?
um, and I was like, okay, well, let's just pray about it and let's just see. And so I kept praying about it, and Brandon kept praying about it. And like, I just remember driving in the car one day going, God, are you sure? I was like, this is crazy. Like, seriously, I'm having this conversation. And God was just like, yes. Like, I heard yes. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, okay, God. But you have to deal with Brandon because he's not sure he wants to do this, you
Right.
know? Because I
Right.
mean, he already does a lot. Like, I work some nights and he comes home and works all day and he's exhausted, and we have lots of kids and they do activities and it's just a lot. So we prayed about it, he prayed about it, and I was like, let's just go to this interest meeting. And so our city does interest meetings every, like before they have a class. So a couple times a year, they'll do an interest meeting and they just tell you about what's foster care, like how they do stuff, all that. Um, and so we went to the meeting and he still hadn't decided. And I think it was like they came and they did it, like they have to do a pre-check of your home, and they like came, they checked our house out just to make sure it was even safe and an option, and they talked to me for 2 hours. They came and they asked like how we met, like they talked about our engage, like I shared my engagement story. They were like, like talking, asking all these questions, like family, like what's your family look
Did you
like.
feel like you were on trial?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little intimidating, but I will tell you what, the guy who does Virginia Beach foster care, the city of Virginia Beach, his name's Ryan Jones, and he is like the most passionate person I have ever met. And he literally like sold it. Like, he sold us on it because he is so passionate and he has the most amazing heart. Like, you've just met someone and you're like, they are amazing. I want to be a part of what they're doing.
Mhm.
Like, they're passionate, they're driven, they're so kind and so real. Like, Bray and I both were like, I love like him and his heart and like just what he's doing and how he's sharing it. And so he kind of not sold it, but like,
Yeah.
like just like really was
Gave
like
you peace
our
about it, basically.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we loved him, and we like the people we met were super sweet and just awesome.
Yeah.
And so
So
Brandon
that was
just
a one-time thing that they came to your house and did that?
so yeah, that was before the class. They have to come to your house, and then they actually decide like, okay, this is a potential family we could see being a foster family. Their house is okay. They seem like a good couple, and then they invite you to the class. So not
Okay.
everyone gets invited back. They're
Gotcha.
very they're pretty picky actually.
Good.
I mean, they have to be. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Well, so did you feel like there were some hurdles or roadblocks that you weren't expecting that you didn't see coming as a part of the process? Or once you got your house checked out, you went to the interest meeting, did they just automatically say, okay, if you're interested, go ahead and apply for this? And then tell us what age groups? I mean, how did that work?
So after we went to our interest meeting, then we told them like, okay, yeah, you can come check our house out, come talk to us. Then they invited us back to the class, and it's a 6-week class, and it's like 3 hours every week, and then you have 4 or so hours of homework. And so
Wow.
you have to go through this whole class and do everything, um, and have it all done by the end of the 6 weeks. And then after that, you have to complete that class. And then there's like the next step. So after that, then you have like the home study starts. So you have to start doing paperwork, tons of paperwork, like very personal stuff, like how are you disciplined? What did your life look like as a child? And
Mhm.
um, just all kinds of stuff like that. Like what does your family look like now? Or have your parents been divorced? Like all kinds of like just stuff like that.
Intricate details.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very detailed. And then like we had like to go to the doctor to make sure we weren't crazy.
Wow. I didn't know all
And
that.
then yeah. Um, what else did we have to do? A bunch of stuff. I don't remember everything, but
Did you have to
it
do
was
any physical tests, like a physical screening too, or
yeah. Oh yeah. That
dietist?
we had to go to we got a special, there's a special like form, like physical form from the doctor that they had to fill out for
Mhm.
us and say like, this person is okay. We think they would be fine to be a foster parent. So
Yeah.
yeah. And
Very
then, TB test, the TB
TV. Uh-huh.
tuberculosis. Yeah.
Tuberculosis tests. Yeah, so I'm thinking about you've had your foster baby for how many months would you say now?
6 months
Has
now.
it been 6 already? Okay.
Yeah.
I try to keep up on Facebook, but I'm really bad about it. Ugh. But so you've had the baby for 6 months, but how long did all that process take from start to finish before you actually got your baby? And then did you sign up for the age group that you did, or they just said, this is the kids that we need and can you do it? And how many
Um,
can you do?
yeah. So that's a great question. So you get to choose your age group. And then you get to say like certain things like, if there are kids that are violent, like we don't want them in our home because we have kids. There are some families that are like, their kids are grown and they do this and they can handle these kids that are harder than,
Yeah.
some kids. So like we chose our age group is 0 to 3. Because I stay home, I can get this like babies and a lot of babies come in like substance exposed or abuse and
Mhm.
neglect, stuff like that. So, I mean, every case is unique and different, but so like I can stay home, so it's easier for me to take an infant than like a full time working
Mhm.
family. So they're not in daycare full time. But yeah, so that's part of the reason I wanted to do that was the little ones because they need a lot more attention and I have that time. So we got to choose our age group and forgot what the other question was.
The process, like how long it took to
Oh,
get to where you got the baby. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. So we started like the interest meeting we went to was in February, I think. And then the class we did was in
Hey, Brandon.
so the class we took started the end of April and it ended in like the last week of May. And then we started our home study and then we got approved July 31st and we got our baby, or sorry, July 30th and we got our baby July 31st. So
3-ish months,
yeah.
kind of.
So, and I will say that was pretty fast because they were in huge need.
Mhm.
So they kind of like pushed us through at the end. Like we were done with all of our stuff. There was just like a few more paperwork things we had to sign.
Mhm.
And then she had to finish the report. Like they have to do a 20-page report on our family,
20 pages?
20 pages at least. So it's a lot, a lot, a lot. So she has to interview kids. She has to interview us both separate together.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they have to come back multiple times to make sure, like, if you were abused as a kid, then they want to come back and make sure you're going to be okay and you're not going to be abusing the kids that you get
Right.
because that is your history.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then if you've been in counseling and therapy, like they want to talk through, okay, how did you deal with this?
Mhm.
And you were raised this way. So what do you think of this? And how are you going to parent? And how are you going to discipline?
Mhm.
So they go, pretty deep and they go like air out
Yeah.
your dirty laundry and they want to know that you're going to be okay, that you're going to be a trustworthy person and take care of these kids and act
Yeah.
appropriately. Um, yeah, it's pretty intense. I have friends that took the class with us and they just got approved. So
A year later almost.
well, since class ended, it's been like 6 months. So 6, 7
Wow.
months. So it it depends on the person you get because they have some in-house writers and some state writers. So
Mhm.
it's and like there's like 20 families that went through the class with us. So think of all of the reports that people are writing. So,
Wow.
and yeah, so.
So, what's the process? And I don't know how much or how little you can share. So, that's something I wondered about too, because I noticed and I have another friend that does foster, um, that she lives off now. So we don't communicate as much, but I noticed whenever there's pictures posted, you don't show their face. So you
Yeah.
never really, that's always, and what are the rules as far as that stuff goes? Because they're
So
part of your family, they go out with you. I mean, they're your kids until I guess they're called back. I guess that's kind of my conception. I don't know.
Yep. So they are in our family. They're a part of our family. They can go on vacations with us. They can go do anything we do. Like if we go out of town, we have to make sure their social worker knows they're okay with it. Like if we were to take our baby to Disney or something, like they have to like make sure the parents are okay with it, because that's like, it might be something they want to do first.
Mhm.
So there is respite care. So like if I'm going out of town and I can't take the baby, there's respite care where other foster families volunteer to help watch other foster families' kids while they're out of town. So that's really cool. But yeah, so he's a part of our family. He goes everywhere with us. He does whatever. There's no social media. Like we can't post their pictures on social media, anything like that. We can't, like no names, no ages, anything like that, or like birthdays and, stuff like that.
Right.
So just, protect them, protect their parents. Um, I would, you don't want to grow up and be like, oh, hey, here's a post about me. I was in foster care, and I don't
Yeah.
want all my friends to know that. I'd be a teenager. Um,
Right.
so like, I
So the
understand it, but it's like, I want to show off my cute baby too. So it's
I
hard.
know. Amen, girl. And so, um, what you were talking about with like the whole process of you gave the age group, you guys set that part up, and then when the kids are placed with you, then you agree to take that kid, and there's an understanding there, I guess, as far as like when that kid's gonna go back with their family, or how does that part work? Because that's the part that scares me, and that's the part that I'm like, do I want to give this baby back? This is
Yep.
not my baby. Right.
So when you so let me start with this. The average stay right now for us, like in our city, is like 23 months in foster care.
Is that good or
So
bad? I don't know what's the
it's just it is what it is.
okay.
So I mean, that's like 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's quite a bit of time. And when you get a kid, like sometimes the worker will be like, hey, it could be a unique thing where like parents are just finishing up some stuff and then they're going to go home. There are some kids that come into care for like the weekend because the parents did something stupid,
Mhm.
and it wasn't safe, and they just have to get stuff sorted out and make sure they're in a safe
Mhm.
home, and then they can go home. Um, but a lot of times kids come into care and it's quite a bit of a process. And
Mhm.
we can't talk about like what our parents have gone through or what they're doing or anything like that.
Mhm.
But it takes a while. And if they don't do it within a certain amount of time and the judge gives them like 15, 18, 2 years, whatever they decide,
Mhm.
then if they can't do what they need to do within that amount of time, then they actually get termination of rights, um, because they don't want kids in foster care forever. Like if 2 years comes and goes and they still haven't done anything,
Mhm.
um, a lot of times they're not going to do anything. And so then, foster families, some of them choose to adopt, some of them are just there to do foster care. So if there's relatives, sometimes relatives will take the kids. Every situation is so different.
Yeah.
There's no like, hey, this is going to be a 5-month thing and then he's going to go home.
Mhm.
And sometimes they go home to aunts or uncles or cousins.
Right.
And you've been working with the parents for 18 months, so it's just, you just kind of have no idea what's going to happen. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned on this journey is that I just have to release control to God, because there's no like blueprint, there's no direction and like map that says, hey, we're going to go here and here's the end thing. It's just like,
Right.
it's a roller coaster. It's like ups and downs, like mom and dad are doing good and then they're not doing good, or,
Like you're privy to
mom.
that stuff, it sounds like. You get to know a little bit of their background. It's not just like you get to have this child in your home and care for this child as your own, and then all of a sudden the child's gone and you're wondering what happened. Like you're
Yeah.
a part of the process too, and do you get to talk with the parents at all?
Yeah.
I mean, how does that part work?
So I think it depends on the parent and what they're willing to do, because I have some parents, like some friends that are foster parents, and they don't really have any relationship with parent of their foster baby um or kid or whatever, but because they're just like so bitter that they don't have their kid. But there's a reason, unfortunately, that you don't have your kid. And we, as foster parents, like our heart and our whole goal is to see them go back to you, because we know the best place is for them to be with their mom and their dad,
Mm-hmm.
or family or grandparents or whatever. Because there's just something about growing up with your parents and your family, and
Yeah.
we don't we don't ever want to like take their kids. We want them
Right.
to be home with their parents. So I know like me, my goal is to love on my baby's parents as much as I can anytime I see them, just like encourage them.
Because you see these movies like and I
Oh
don't,
yeah, that,
was it Instant Family?
yes, yes.
Was that started out as fostering, right? And then they ended up adopting. But
Yeah,
and that did, I remember seeing that and just thinking about, the like you said, the emotional ups and downs and the unknowns and just, I like how you said the ultimate goal is getting them back to their families, but as long as that's the safest place for them to
mhm,
be too, that if the parents and the families make those changes that, for whatever reason. Um, but that's a great perspective on it, that sometimes people just hit a bumpy patch and for whatever reason this situation comes up and there are people like you and Brandon that are saying, "Hey, I'm willing to be, just like a safe haven on this road to getting your kid back. Like I'll do whatever I can to help you be able to get your kid back," kind of thing. And just like the perspective that you said of being able to say that and be that for a parent that feels like you're almost the enemy of sorts, almost blaming you, I guess, in some ways that you took their kid away, and that's not the reality, and for you to be able to assure them that, "No, no, no, I'm on your team. I want what's best for, your child, and, your child to be with you is my priority, but we have to make sure that you're doing everything you need to." So, gosh, that's even more than I even realized was a part of that process because I didn't know anything about it or how it worked, but I know there's such a need and you know, just helping people that can't help themselves for the time being until they can get their stuff figured out, that I guess
yeah.
that's to me what it sounds like the big picture is. Um, so how many kids are in foster care? Did they tell you that as a part of your class? Like what, and did they
They
stay in foster care until like 18? I mean,
Yeah, so they can, I don't know how many kids are in foster care. And then it like obviously fluctuates every day. Like one of the social workers was here yesterday at my house because yeah, I had my like quarterly appointment with her, and
Mhm.
she was like, "Yep, 3 kids just came in, and then like they had a bunch of kids come in over the weekend, and not all of those kids are here to stay. Some of those kids, it's like we live in the beach, and so people are just making bad decisions, and they leave their kids in the hotel room, and they're hanging out on the balcony at 2 a.m. So the cops get called and social services gets called, and it's like just like, okay, you made a bad decision, we're here to help your kids, and then you can have them
Right.
back. But so you just don't know like who's all there, but it is quite a bit. Like I know when we went through class, it was there was like 50 foster families and there was like 250 kids in our city. So just like the ratios there, like there's that need. And I know like we constantly are having people come in, and I know like Renee's heart is to like share that with people, that this is an awesome way to help the community, and like
Mhm.
to you can adopt a kid eventually if that's your heart. It's not going to be an easy journey. I mean, adoption's never easy, but some of these kids are gonna need to have a forever home, and you
Yeah.
could be that person for them. So, and I think a hard part is like people don't, they think it's like too much and it's too hard to even try to do. And not everyone can do it, because if you don't have a clean background and you've had
Mhm.
like, ever had a CPS case, or you've had,
Mhm.
you know, a felony, and like sometimes people just can't do it. But um it's it's really like you learn so much in the class. I felt like very equipped. Like you learn about trauma, you learn about abuse, and just like lots of things, and how to deal with things, and how, just we just learned a lot. And I felt like I came away very equipped
Yeah.
to handle a lot of stuff that I had never dealt with ever.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they did a great job with that.
That's awesome. Um, so you were talking about feeling equipped. So now that you have the class and now that you have the baby, do you feel like your perception of what it was going to be like is pretty much how it is? Or do you feel like you've been surprised in certain areas about anything? Did anything take you by surprise, or were you pretty much ready for things that have come up along the road?
I think having a friend who was already in foster care and just seeing the ups and downs was helpful for managing expectations. Just keep them very low. Um, but I definitely have had like some surprises happen. Be like, whoa, okay, I didn't expect that.
Hmm.
Um, and I just feel like that's normal.
Right.
Like you have people who don't get back to you and when you have questions, and then you have this takes way longer, and this is tons of paperwork, or
Mhm.
whatever it is. Like it's just it's just something that you don't know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. And when you think something's going to happen, you go to court and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's a roller coaster. That's the only way I can really explain it. It's
Right.
like ups and downs. But I
That's not-
think I've learned to like just release control and just be like, okay, God, whatever happens, I'm just going to trust you and know that it's going to work out and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Um, that's just kind of how I've learned, and like put zero time frame on it. Like, I'm
Hmm.
just going to plan like he's going to be with us for a long time, because he might be, but then he could also be gone in a month, like
Right.
you just have to like, okay.
Hmm. And there's nothing, I guess, really that prepares you for that, but just having that everyday surrender to the Lord to say, this is your child first. This is not my child or even the parent's child. This is your child first, and you've entrusted this child into my care and paired us up for a reason. So it's got to be freeing just being able to surrender every day. But um that's great advice. Just the fact that you just kind of roll with the punches with all of it, which is so hard to do when, like myself, I like a routine. I like to know the answers. I like to be prepared, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So tell me how your kids have adapted to the whole process of having a new little one. Have they had happy things, bad things to say? Have you had any good conversations with them or been able to tie in like the word to why mommy and daddy are feeling this is important, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Tell me about
So we definitely involved our kids in this conversation from the beginning. Like when we even just talked about like, hey, would you guys want to help a little kid that, their mommy and daddy can't take care of them right now? So we would help them take care of them for a little bit, and then they would get to go home. And they were all like about it. My oldest was not really sure, because he's like, I don't really like babies. Like
that.
they cry.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, well, you cried. So he was not all about it. He was like fine with toddlers, but babies, he was like, meh.
Yeah.
The girls are in love with babies, so they were all about it. And my youngest was just kind of like, sure, whatever.
They were an
Um,
easy sell.
yeah. So it's been such an interesting journey. My kids have adapted really well. I feel like the first couple weeks was like they call it the honeymoon phase, where everything was just like easy and wonderful.
Mhm.
And then it was like, oh my gosh, what happened to my kids? And they were all like getting crazy and like just needing extra attention. Like when your kids need the extra attention, you're like, why are you acting out? Why are you being so wild? Why are you being
Right.
so crazy? And I was like, oh, they need extra attention. And with like every kid that I had, I noticed like my youngest got wild and crazy because then they're not the baby anymore. They're not getting all the attention.
Yeah.
So my youngest was like just kind of extra crazy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. And it
Yes.
was in summer. And so he's home all day. And so it was very challenging with that. But I mean, you just learn how to navigate. And I was like, if I would have had a fifth baby, it would have been the same thing, you know?
Exactly.
So you just roll with the punches, you navigate, you talk, you like we do date nights with our kids. So like Brandon or I will take the kid out on a date and then just like have undivided attention for that kid for like a couple hours. And we do it once a month for each kid. So every week is a different kid. And that really has helped just
Okay.
give them some like extra attention and love. And like if we want to have, conversations, because like our kids are getting older and school
Mhm.
stuff is crazy nowadays. So just like being able to talk to them about real life stuff and
Yeah.
it just be one on one. So it's been an interesting ride, and they have their days of being hard. And my youngest is like, he needs to go back to his mommy now, like when he's
Oh,
over it. And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, but not yet.
But he can't
Um,
just yet.
but I am thankful that he can share his heart and like,
Yes.
I'm sure it's not easy being the baby for 5 years and then now you have not the baby.
Mm.
Um, and so, just navigating that with any kid is hard. But my oldest, I loved kind of seeing his transition because he didn't even like care that the baby was here for like probably a month. Like he was fine with him. He wasn't upset or anything, but he
Mhm.
just wasn't like, he was just like, whatever. But then he like started warming up to him and then he like started holding him. And now he like
Okay.
plays with him and talks to him and he's just like the sweetest.
Mhm.
And so it just like warmed my heart to just like every kid is different. Like their transition is different. And like
Mhm.
it took my son, my oldest, like a couple months to like really warm up to the baby.
Yeah.
Um, and I think too, maybe it's that like I have to protect my heart because I know he's not going to be here forever. I mean, he
Mhm.
could, but he's probably not going to be here forever. And that's kind of how we prepare our kids. Like foster care is, they're going to go home to their parents. Now, if their
Yeah.
parents can't have them, then maybe we will get to keep them. But like
Mhm.
the goal is for them to go home. So we kind
Yeah.
of, that's how we talk to them about it. But yeah, so it's been a wild ride,
That is so
but
good that you
it's been
yeah.
good.
It's so good that you give them a chance to share their heart and be real like that and not condemn them for their feelings or anything, but just let them be able to talk and share because it's almost like how we do. We have to process things, and sometimes it helps to
Yeah.
process things out loud, and sometimes we in our own adult version withdraw to kind of process things and just like you said, we kind of forget that our kids are little people. Like they have their own personalities, their
Yeah.
own thoughts, their own reservations about things and just giving them that space and that love and letting them know that you're still their mommy and you still love them and nothing's going to change that. But it's important that we help out this baby that needs help right now and this
Mhm.
family. So that's so inspiring. I mean, I think that is amazing. um, what would you say to a mom or a family that are thinking about fostering, but they've got some reservations? I mean, what were your reservations going into it that you felt like God had to work with you? And then what would you say to them as far as they're embarking on that journey or not?
I always say follow your peace. Like if you feel like God's called you to do something, then He's equipped you to do it, and He will fill in all the gaps, and He will help you through all the hard stuff. I mean, the first day, like when I came home from the first visitation and I met my baby's mom, I just came home and cried because I couldn't even um, like handle like the feeling of like if I didn't have my baby, how would that feel? But
Mhm.
you know what? Like God called me to do this and be here in this moment. And so if he's calling you to do it, then you can be brave and you can do it too. And it's hard and it's scary. And I love this term beautifully devastated because it's like it's hard, but it's beautiful. And God's like, taught me so much through these hard things, but it's beautiful and it's like so challenging and it's like really challenged me. And I
Yes.
just see God in this so much. And, you know, it's just one way to be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Mhm.
So I
Exactly.
say, if you feel called, go do it and just be
Right.
brave. Um, but
I
yeah,
would definitely say that there's not been anything else in my life that I can compare to how motherhood has taught me about my faith. Like I've been involved in lots of different things that have emboldened me in my faith and built my faith up, by being able to either speak or lead small groups or things like that. Like when you're given a word from God and you share it with somebody else and you're actively sharing it, that it builds you up and it just builds your faith and your relationship with God. But as a mother, like how many times I have I've said something to my kid and then been like, like, okay, God, that's how you feel about me. And it's just all these little, I should just start a journal of like all the things that I would say. And that God is like, but wait, like, that's how I feel about you. Or that's, like the frustration that you have towards your child. Like maybe you've made me feel that way before too. Like it's not me being God's child. And so it's just taught me so many lessons in motherhood. Have there been any specific new lessons that you've learned through your foster baby? Or has it been just more of the same, like, oh my gosh, I'm starting over with a little baby. I've not been in this phase for 5 years.
yeah. I definitely felt like I had to restart everything. And so much has changed in 5 years. I'm like, what am I doing? And I also breastfed all of my children. And then you go to full time bottle feeding. So that was a very interesting adventure for me just because I hadn't really navigated that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I can't think of anything like huge.
Yeah.
I will like for if your baby falls over and like gets a scratch or gets a bruise or something, like we have to tell our social worker and send them a picture. So I feel like I'm a lot more stressed out and anxious for like protecting them.
Right.
Because like you don't
Right.
want like the mom to think, oh my gosh, she just like lets my kid get hurt all the time,
Exactly.
or the social worker to think you're a terrible person.
Oh
And then of
yeah.
course like babies start walking and they
Yeah.
start crawling and falling and all these things and you're like, oh my gosh, I need a bubble.
Yeah,
um
let's bubble wrap this kid. It
yeah,
reminds me when you started talking about that, I just got this like flashback of a quick stand up that Kevin Hart did. Do you like Kevin Hart? Do you ever listen to him? He's a
yeah,
pretty funny dude.
yeah, he is really
I've been
funny.
to Virginia Beach a couple of times and I wanted to go see him, but he talked about like how awful it is giving have you ever given somebody back their kid broken? Like you had them for a while and then you like hurt them.
Yes.
That is hilarious. That's what I thought of when you're like, oh, they didn't come to me like that. And I just you know. So it's almost like the way that you were saying that made me think of how my daycare lady must feel because, every thing that it has to be like, okay, I found this here. What happened with this? And they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what that kid did. Like
Yeah.
just, you can't like, I have my own children that have bruises on them. I'm like, how did this happen to you? They don't even know, but they were under my watch when they got it. And I'm like, I don't even know. So there's got to be grace for that, right? Do you ever get in trouble for that stuff? Or like, what do they just want to know about it?
They have to know about it. I don't think I'll get in trouble. Obviously, if I'm like being abusive, I'll definitely get
Right,
in trouble
right,
for
right.
that. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
Um, they are great because they know and they understand like, okay, you have a toddler.
Right.
And now if you have there's like so one of the things you learn in class too is like there are like normal bruises from like kids walking to walls. Like one of my kids literally would like start running down the hall and be looking to the side because they'd look at their siblings and then they'd run into the wall because they're not over far enough and they didn't like actually look where they were walking. Like
Right.
every day I'm like, look where you're walking, turn, look, like before they hit their head on the corner of the wall because they're not actually looking where they're walking.
Yeah.
So like pediatricians understand, like social workers understand, like there are certain types of falls and bruises that they're going to get just because of like age and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And like, I mean, I like still walk into stuff and like, walk into the dishwasher and like kick my shin, sometimes like, uh, like stuff like that happens. There's like
Yeah.
natural ones and then
They're
there's like
going upstairs.
abuse, like they
Yeah.
can differentiate. So
Yes. Well, that's comforting to know too, because I know what you mean, kind of not wanting to, mess up the baby and it be on your
Yeah.
watch, but it's just like any other kid, they're gonna fall down. Sorry, they're gonna
Mhm.
get bruised and cut.
Yeah.
So that's super awesome. Have you and Brandon had like a full circle, like come back? Do y'all process like how are things going? Is this, still something that we want to do? Like what's as when you join the fostering process, are you under a contract to do something for a certain amount of time or are you like what do they kind of encourage or do they tell you healthy boundaries to set with your family to know when it's not working and then you can reach back out to them? How does that part work?
Yeah. So like there's no like contracts of like time or anything like that. So there's like families that have been doing foster care for like 20 years or whatever. Like the foster mom who had my baby for like 2 weeks before I got him, she already had 4 foster kids, but she like is one of the amazing foster moms that does this. She's been doing it for 11 years and she's just one of those awesome people that they can call when they need her and say, hey, can you help for, a little bit while we find someone for this permanent placement
Mhm.
versus just like a weekend or whatever. So there's no time frames. But like they do say, like, if you get a kid and you're dealing with trauma, basically.
Mhm.
You're signing up for a kid that has trauma, and everyone deals with trauma differently. There are kids that lash out and they're violent. There are kids that lash out and they're just like verbal and, wild. There are kids that lash out and they, can harm themselves or
Mhm.
run away or whatever. And then there's super sweet kids that just their parents made bad choices, but they're amazing kids and you would never know. So you can totally say, I'm tapping out. I can't do
Yeah.
this. This is too much. And they support you in that. And they tell you, like, if you are overwhelmed and your family's not doing well, or like, say you get a kid and they're not meshing well with your kids and it's just not working and it's really ugly or whatever, you can just say, hey, this isn't a good fit for us. And we need to figure this out. And they work with you. They will, you can figure out if you want to try to work together and figure out how to make it work, or if they say, okay, let's find a different family, because not every single kid is going to fit perfectly in your family. And that's the beautiful thing about foster care is there's so many different families that they know the families and they say, okay, this one would be great with this family because they do this, or this one loves sports, so let's put them with this family because this family is super active and they do tons of sport or whatever.
That's
The thing is that the kids love, so they try to fit them where they think they're going to go the best, and I think they do a really good job of it. But it's not always going to be perfect and it's not always going to work, and you can totally tap out.
yes, that's
And
comforting to
there's
hear. Yeah.
there's no like shame too, like in that, like I have a friend that had to say, this is too much. I can't do it. Baby's crying nonstop. Like I just can't take care of my other kids. And then this baby, because literally the baby demands all of my attention. It's not fair to my other kids that they
Mhm.
don't have mommy to help them because I'm literally attending this baby all the time.
Right.
So sometimes you just have to say, I can't do it. And that's okay.
Yes, that's good to know too, because I feel like that would be a real roadblock for some people because you don't know how your kids are gonna handle the
Yeah.
dynamic of a new little one and little being demanding on time and attention too. So that's so cool. That perspective and just having a godly family that wants to honor him and, call answer the call that he's given them. That's just it's so inspiring. And on top of 4 kids, I'm like, dude, that's you need a medal. I mean, that's amazing. That is just you get mad props for that. So
Ah, that's
thank you
funny.
so much for spending all this time. I wasn't even watching the time. It's been almost an hour. So
I know. I was like, how long does she do these for?
girl, I was just so into it. I'm sorry. I just loved everything you were saying. So
No,
if
it's
other
fine.
people checked out, that's fine because I learned so much from this.
It's
So
good.
tell me
Oh,
something. Oh,
I was gonna say one thing. I think so. Like with motherhood, one thing I've learned is everyone's capacity is different, and so I think like don't discount yourself if you think you can't handle something. God can expand your capacity, and that's actually one of the funny things about last year our word for the year was expansion, and someone had like prophesied and given me the verse, expand your tent pegs. And she was like, I just feel like God wants you to know that your capacity is so much bigger than you think it is. And
Wow.
I had no idea, obviously, that it meant like, oh, a kid.
Which is a huge expansion, right?
Right, right. But I just think like as moms, like we do so much and we have a big capacity, but
Yeah.
sometimes God calls us out of our comfort zone and he wants us to expand our tent pegs, and we can actually do that because he's equipped us for that.
Yes.
And so just don't discount yourself.
Yes. Tell me the verse that you're talking about so I can look it up.
Enlarge the place of your tent, Isaiah 54:2. Enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your tent curtains wide, do not hold back, lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes. That's the NIV.
Awesome.
Yeah. So,
So what's your word for this year? Did you guys pick one this year?
yeah, my word for this year is refine, because I need some refining.
After you've
So
expanded, you need to
you,
refine them.
exactly. I've expanded and it's like everything's gone insane. So
Right.
it's just like, let's refine like motherhood. I have to kind of figure out, okay, how do I do this better? Because some like you go into survival mode for some things.
Right.
Um, so just refining that, refining my business, refining our marriage, is always refining,
Yeah.
refining myself and my heart and my relationship with God. It's just like all the areas of my life need a little.
I love it. That is so good. So I picked favor for 2020.
Ooh,
So
yeah,
I want to pray for you and pray for God's favor on you and your family and what he's doing. Is it okay if we pray to close
absolutely.
out? All right. God, thank you so much for this mama. Thank you for everything that she embodies, that is everything you want her to be and do, and that she's willingly doing, that you're empowering her to do. I thank you for the calling you've put on her life and Brandon's life to mama and daddy, these 4 children, and now a 5th child for whatever season, whatever timing you have. Lord, I pray for every child that enters their home, that they would feel the unconditional love of Christ and that they would be just enveloped in love and peace and want that for themselves, Lord, that they will have a mark, a true mark of Christ on them and their lives. And I just pray your favor on them, Lord, whatever is in store for this year, for 2020. I just pray that you would not only bless them with your favor and show them your favor, God, but that you would continue to help them favor you and look like you and everything that they do, Lord, as the crazy and the hairy and the ugly times come out where we lose our cool and we're dealing with all these tiny humans, God. I just pray that you would just help them to favor you and just to look like Jesus and give them the strength to just say, come here, baby, and just let me hold you and just understand that they've got all the emotions and all the feelings and they just need that stability and that love. And I just am so inspired by them and just pray that you would continue to use them in their church and their community and Stephanie's business, that it would all grow and expand and that you would help her refine as she's seeking to do this year, Lord, and show her the important things and to dwell on those things. And God, I love this girl. I thank you that I've been able to keep up with her from afar, but I've just enjoyed being able to pray for her and pray for them. And I thank you for bringing her brother-in-law home out of the hospital and just the blessing that that was to see, Lord, your hand move in his life. And God, just give them more. I just pray and just help them to be good stewards of everything that you have for them. And I thank you for their hearts and for this time together, God. And we just love you and give it to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Good News Mama. If you did, please leave me a review on iTunes. A 5-star review is best, and hit subscribe. Share with your friends on Instagram and Facebook. Please email me at lynn@goodnewsmama.com. You know I love questions. I love feedback. I want to know what you want to know. We're going to talk about what means something to you. So let's hear it. Follow me on Instagram at Good News Mamas. That's mamas with an S. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Keep your head up, keep your heart humble, and share that good news.